Hey everybody, so we are starting Standard 4, and I know for those of you that tried to get into class today, we were having a problem with Jigsaw, and I apologize for that. So I'm going to take a little bit more time than I normally do. I try to keep these videos a little shorter so that I can cover some things and you don't feel like you missed anything that was too terribly important, because this is an important standard. We're going to start talking about the American Revolution. And especially in this lesson, we're going to be talking about the Declaration of Independence and why it's written and what the implications of it are and what it means. So we're going to be looking at that during this class period. And specifically, we're going to look at the sources of the DOI, the organization of it, what it says, okay, and then the role of Thomas Jefferson and the Committee of Five. Don't confuse the Committee of Five with the Committee of Correspondence. The Committee of Five has to do with the Declaration of Independence. So, for those of you that don't know, we've talked about the Stamp Act and the Sugar Act and the Boston Tea Party and the Boston Massacre and the Intolerable Acts and all of these things that were happening in the colonies, okay, leading up to this point where the colonies are going to break from England. And so when they finally decide to do that, they write a breakup letter, basically, right, to the King of England. And that's what the Declaration of Independence is. So Thomas Jefferson is the author of the Declaration of Independence. Maybe you knew that, maybe you didn't. So he writes this like rough draft of the DOI, right? And then they put it before this group of men, representatives from each colony. They're called the Continental Congress. And these guys read it and decide, hey, we like this line, we don't like this line, take it out, let's reword that. And finally, they adopt what we know as the final version of the DOI in July, right? But they had been working on it for a long time. So this Continental Congress gets together and they nominate Thomas Jefferson to write it, okay, to write the DOI. So that's what he does. Now, after he writes it, they put together this committee, or the Committee of Five, to basically go back and proofread it, okay? And the committee was made up of Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and two dudes you probably never heard of, and you don't need to remember their names, but they're there on the slide if you want to, okay? Thomas Jefferson was an excellent writer, and he writes up the Declaration of Independence and gives it to these guys to read. Now, I will tell you, at this point, I would highly recommend that you go into Canvas and open up the Standard 3 video links and watch the clip from John Adams, okay, about the Committee of Five. It is an awesome, awesome video, and it does a really good job of kind of making it real, right? What these men were probably doing when they were trying to get the Declaration of Independence written. So one of the things that they do, this Committee of Five, is they go in and they proofread it before they send it to the Continental Congress. Overall, before the DOI gets signed by everybody, there's 86 changes made to it, all right? One of the major changes is going to be regarding slavery, because when Jefferson first writes the DOI, he has a line in there about the abomination of slavery and how bad it is. So why do they take it out? They all agreed it was bad. You got to remember that the Continental Congress is made up of representatives from the southern colonies, right? Where slavery is, the backbone of their economy. So they knew that if they left that line in there about slavery being bad, that none of those southern delegates would sign the DOI. And also because although they knew slavery was bad, they didn't know how to fix it. Okay, so it was kind of like, hey, our main focus right now needs to be breaking up with England, not figuring out how to deal with slavery. So they took the part about slavery out of the DOI, and that's the reason why. But I wanted you to know it goes through a lot of other changes other than just that, okay? Now, when we look at the Declaration of Independence, it's really a letter, okay, from the colonies to the king, and they break the letter up into three parts, all right? The first part of the DOI is referred to as the preamble, okay? And that's the part everybody knows. When in the course of events, blah, 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 and he talks about all of that. Basically, what the preamble is doing is it's telling the world why the colonies want independence from England. Okay, so we are going to explain in this letter why we want to break up with you, England. That's the first part, or the preamble, of the Declaration of Independence. The second part, which is the longest part, is basically a laundry list of all the bad stuff the King of England did to the colonists. You did this, you did this, you didn't do this, okay? And it's just this long list. There's like 27 grievances against the King of England. And that's the second part of the DOI. The third part is where they kind of say, look, we tried to prevent this from happening. We wrote you letters and we asked for you to meet us halfway, and we wanted to work something out, and you continually ignored us or threatened us or would not work with us. So you gave us no choice but to have to break up with you. Okay, that's what the third part of the letter says. So you might want to go back and look at that and know what the three parts are. So this next slide I wanted to share with you is just some excerpts from the DOI. And if you want to pause this and take a look at them and read them and kind of get an idea of what they're saying in there, I think that would be a great idea. Okay. One of the other things that I want to draw to your attention is Thomas Jefferson, when he wrote the DOI, it wasn't like all the ideas that he put in there he came up with on his own. A whole bunch of the Declaration of Independence is based on a guy named John Locke. And you probably remember John Locke from when we talked about the Enlightenment, right? John Locke's idea was that all men, regardless of whether you're rich or poor, educated or uneducated, we all possess something called natural rights, right? And we're talking about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or property, or the right to own property. So when Thomas Jefferson writes a DOI, he goes back and uses a lot of John Locke's ideas about natural rights, okay? That's where they come from. So it's important that you remember John Locke when we're talking about the Declaration of Independence. And part of that is the social contract theory. So we all have these natural rights, but in order for us to live in a civilized society, right, not one that's just chaos, people have to give up a certain amount of their rights to a government that's going to protect and defend them. Okay. So for the social contract theory, what it means is everybody has all these natural rights, but they willingly give up some of their power in return for giving it to the government. The government's job is to protect people's natural rights. Okay. And the DOI was saying, if at some point the government, and in this case, the King of England, starts to abuse their power, then it's the duty of the people to replace or overthrow that government. So hopefully you see how those Enlightenment ideas from John Locke about natural rights and the social contract theory fit into the wording that Thomas Jefferson uses when he's writing the Declaration of Independence.